Trade reports are escalating surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs as a brand new report has dropped from Chris Johnson and other notable reporters revealing a huge Leafs trade update. We're going to break down exactly what it is and discuss the target that the Leafs are pursuing. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. If you want to help us, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll also be live following tonight's game against the Red Wings, so make sure you stay tuned for the stream tonight. But Darius, there's a lot to go over, and again, they played tonight, but we have some news surrounding trade talks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and most importantly, a new target, a familiar target to a degree, but a new report on this target. And this dropped, and it's getting a lot of traction. So you can see this here from me. So it's Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnson in our latest Athletic article. And he goes on to say that LeBrun picks Yanni Gourde to the Leafs. He's got a modified no trade clause. My understanding is he would have no issue with the move to the Leafs. And he's the kind of player that general manager Brad Treliving appreciates, not shying away from the rough and tumble hockey played in the playoffs. And again, this is very interesting, and that sparked the conversation from many fans, reporters. Is Yanni Gourde a good fit for the Leafs? Doesn't make sense. Will it happen? This is a new report. He is willing to waive, at least all signs are pointing to him being willing to waive his no move clause and no trade clause, to come to the Toronto Maple Leafs if they pull off a trade.
Yeah, it's a modified no trade clause. So reports are flying around right now saying that he would be 100% open to waiving that to come to Toronto. So it sounds like this could be an option for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And obviously, Brad Treliving likes this player for the obvious reasons. This is a guy who, despite his size, can play a physical caliber of hockey. He plays that heavy style that we've been talking about coming into this season that Craig Berube wanted to establish with this group. He plays exactly that style. Is he the biggest player? No, and I think that is something to consider, right? Maybe you go out and you got a bigger player, and I don't know if that's the right choice, but that might be a choice that Brad Treliving makes. But I think if this player is available and you're able to retain salary, because we'll get into the salary in a little bit, then I think that it could be a good option. This is a guy who's won a Stanley Cup before. He played on those Tampa Bay Lightning teams that won the Stanley Cup, so obviously he knows how to win. I'm a big fan of the mentality of those teams. I think that's exactly how you can win a Stanley Cup in the NHL, obviously, because they did it, but I think he would be a great fit for the team. But again, they're going to have to make that salary work. But it sounds like he wouldn't mind coming here. And I think that he might have jumped to first place on the list of targets that the Leafs should get for third line center.
Yeah, there's a lot of different targets. Of course, we've covered a lot of them. We've also covered Yanni Gourde in the past as well, surrounding the Leafs. You can see here, Fisher Minting had some time in the spot and had success earlier, scoring 4 points. But Max Domi is filled in. They really need to find a new spot for. They need a third line center. Maybe even some people are saying a second line center. They need forward depth. You can see this here. It remains to be seen whether the Kraken will actually make Yanni Gourde available ahead of the deadline. You may remember a year ago at this time, Jordan Eberle's name was thrown around quite a bit because he was a pending UFA and the Kraken weren't playoff bound. But instead of moving him, the Kraken signed him to a contract extension. Now Seattle needs to make the decision regarding Yanni Gourde. And as of writing this, there haven't been any contract discussions. So I would lean towards the side of Yanni Gourde being traded away from the Kraken, and hopefully it is the Leafs. Obviously, there's still a lot of different things to discuss whether the Leafs are going to be able to get him if they have the assets that the Kraken want. But you can see this here. If indeed Yanni Gourde is moved, my matchmaking crystal ball has him landing with Toronto because he fits the criteria of what the Leafs need as far as a third line center upgrade. 2 cups, as we know, and plays the kind of hockey that translates in playoff, which is why Brad Treliving fired Sheldon Keefe and hired Craig Berube. Modified no trade, and he is willing to go to the Leafs. So I mean, he's a very interesting player here, and some fans are super excited. Some fans a bit hesitant regarding him. But I mean, look at his stats this year: 15 points, 32 games. He's 33 years old. He is a pending UFA. So Darius, it would be a rental. That being said, do you see a world where? Again, we can also discuss what it takes to get him, but I think he'd fit pretty well into this team.
I think he could fit really well with this team. And again, like you said, maybe not as attractive of a trade target as maybe some others. I do think that this is a guy that maybe you should target if he is available and he will be willing to come to your team, but maybe not as attractive because he is going to be a rental. And if you look at the stat line too, it doesn't jump off the page at you, right? Like 15 points in 32 games so far this year. But Seattle is a fringe playoff team. You have to keep that in mind. He's playing third line minutes there, so you got to keep that in mind. I saw some people say that, they should pass on this and go out and get an elite third line center. I don't know if elite and third line and center kind of go in the same sentence, but he's a guy that I think that could definitely help you. So again, stats don't jump off the page. But one other thing I was thinking about a move specifically revolving around Yanni Gourde, is I've been saying that the Leafs need to add more guys who've been there and done that, either gone to the Stanley Cup final or who have won the Stanley Cup. And they did a lot of that this offseason, obviously adding three. So and just from last year, not just a couple years ago. So they did that. And I think in adding a guy like Gourde, you're doing that again. And I think they need more guys like that. In the past, they added guys like Wayne Simmons and Joe Thornton, who've maybe gone to the final, but never really won the Stanley Cup, right? Or maybe gone deep in the playoffs and know how to play, but it didn't translate properly. Now they have the right formula, I think, with Craig Berube and the way that they're trying to play. If they add another piece like this who's won the Stanley Cup, it could bode well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bring up the stats once again. At the point for the players that the Leafs are shopping for right now, the stats aren't going to be the be-all, end-all. I feel like a lot of the intangibles are also important. You mentioned being a Stanley Cup winner, 33 years old. I mean, still 15 points in 32 games. That would provide a huge upgrade on the third line or wherever they decide to put Yanni Gourde if they trade for him. And he's only averaging 15 minutes. Yeah, that's still a solid amount. He would fit pretty well. And as you start to look at some fans' reaction, Yanni Gourde again, he'll be the worst acquisition since some other players Leafs should be looking for a long-term 3C, preferably someone elite or younger. I just don't know if that's what Brad Treliving is going to be going for at the deadline. Obviously, they want someone under control. They want someone who ideally isn't a rental, even though last trade deadline, Brad Treliving came out and got a bunch of rentals, and obviously it didn't work out. But I don't know. Fans, again, some fans really like it. Some fans are not as big of a fan. Specifically regarding this player, you can see this here. People seem to be labeling Yanni Gourde as washed at the ripe age of 33 and a mere 577 games played. Half a point a game this year on a bad team. Small but tough. Obviously, we talked about Nick Bjugstad for a while there. He would be the perfect 3C to pick up for the Leafs, provided his cost is not bid up too high. So it's like there's kind of two different sides of it here. And let us know down below, do you want Yanni Gourde? Are you on that side? And Darius, I'll ask you now, what kind of package do you think the Kraken will want? We've obviously been throwing Nick Robertson in a lot of these trade rumors because he is the most likely to be traded at this point. Obviously, there's some prospects. Fraser Minton, his name has been called up and brought up a lot in these talks. It's picks, of course. Obviously, you'll probably take some sort of pick here, but for a rental 33-year-old, unless the cost gets crazy high, I think the Leafs would pursue this trade pretty hard. And he's not going to change everything for the Leafs. He's not going to be a guy who completely. I mean, he could be the piece that puts them over the top, but they already have the structure in place. It's just a matter of kind of fine-tuning the edges here to let them win some more games, especially when it comes playoff time, which is the most important thing for this team.
Well, I think Nick Robertson is a good starting point because if you're going to be bringing in a guy like this, somebody off the roster might have to go out the other way. And I think you move Max Domi over to the wing where he should be on the third line position. So, or maybe even first line with Austin Matthews, but that's a different topic for another day and a different video. But I think that another piece would have to come out. Maybe it's Nick Robertson. Maybe that's the talking point. Maybe that's the starting point of this trade, right? Because I don't know if Nick Robertson at this point, yes, he's been putting together some pretty good games recently, and I do think highly of him and that he still has a high ceiling. But with this team and where they want to go, I don't know if he's going to stick around past this season even. So I think that's something that they look at. Maybe a mid-round pick too, right? I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but you're going to have to give up assets nonetheless. Like it could be a third round pick or something like this because Seattle's going to want something back for losing a player like this. He probably won't re-sign in Seattle. So, I think that he's going to be up for grabs at the trade deadline. If he wants to come to Toronto, I think that's great. This is a player that would absolutely help this team. But despite his size, I think that could be maybe an issue, but he plays the right way. He plays heavy. And I think that could really help this team, especially in that role. I think it's more of the way that the team plays versus needing more scoring in the depth, like the third and fourth line. I think it's the way that they play, and I think they've changed that this year. So hopefully it translates to the playoffs.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. And if you want to see Yanni Gourde come to Toronto, let us know. And again, the Leafs play tonight, so we'll keep you up to date on that following the game. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.